Through the Demonstrating Next-Gen Resilient Orchards project, being led by the Queensland Department of Agricultural and Fisheries and supported by the Cooperative Research Centre for Developing Northern Australia, project partners are investigating the use of both high-density and trellis planting systems to examine their production capacity, profitability and resilience to cyclones. With trial sites established across Queensland, the Northern Territory and Western Australia, the Demonstrating Next-Gen Resilient Orchards project brings together expertise from multiple government agencies, industry organisations and private companies. Under the project, jackfruit is being used as a catalyst tree crop. While specific to jackfruit, it is expected that the production systems being investigated could be applied to any orchard crop. The Western Australia horticulture industry has an annual wholesale value of $1.49 billion. Major crops grown in the state includes avocados, grapes, olives and strawberries, along with vegetable crops such as tomatoes, carrots and potatoes. Under the project, Western Australia has established 2 trial sites. One in Carnarvon, located in the far north of the state, approximately 45 kilometres from the border with Northern Territory, and the second in Carnarvon, a coastal town at the mouth of the Gascoyne River, approximately 900 kilometres north of Perth. The climatic conditions prevailing in Carnarvon are characterised by a subtropical desert climate. The unique climatic environment has added interest to the project, allowing researchers to push jackfruit to its limits and understand how this harsh and extreme environment affects the crop.
This project is all about demonstrating next-generation orchard production systems. With our high light intensity, our extreme heat, but then cold winters, our wind pressure, all of these factors combined have really set us aside as a model location. Sunburn's one of our greatest challenges here in Carnarvon, and to combat that, we're using different management practices, including spraying all of the trees with sun cream. The product that we're using is a kaolin-based clay. So with the clay, we mix it with water and we spray it across the leaves of the trees. We're hoping the clay particles will be able to reflect sunlight and stop burning on the leaves and branches of the trees. One of the other environmental stresses we experience is flooding. The last major flood in this region was in 2021, and before that it was in 2011. Our floods can affect a lot of the topsoil in the region as well. We have massive issues with erosion, and that's because Carnarvon's located in a river delta, which means we have beautiful soils for agriculture, but one of the problems is when we do get floods, those soils go straight out to sea. And so one of the things we're finding we need to start doing in the future is planting more perennial tree crops, like jackfruit, but we also need to start bringing in cover cropping to protect those bare soils in between the trees. If we can figure out how to grow jackfruit and other crops in the extreme environment here, this knowledge can be translated and applied to other growing regions across Australia.
Both high-density and trellis planting systems are being examined under the project. At the Carnarvon Research Station, the focus is on trellis planting systems.
We've been examining different methods for combating our environmental pressures here in Carnarvon. Some of those have been installing infrastructure, such as our trellis systems, which we have for the jackfruit, the mangoes, and the persimmons. So our trellis system was designed to withstand cyclones. We have these massive pine posts that you can see behind me that have been treated. They've been put into the ground at a depth of 1,200 millimeters. So we have wires running across, and the trees are being trained and tied to the wires at each level. It's 3 meters between trees and 4 meters between rows. And we were trying to achieve a more high density planting in this particular trial. This trial has 100 trees in total. We have 60 trees on the trellis system and 40 trees off the trellis system. They're all of the same variety, which is Rajang. And the Rajang variety is one of the more popular varieties grown in Australia, particularly in the Northern Territory. And it's got a really good market value. The trellis system trees and the freestanding trees have been an interesting one to compare. We're actually seeing a slightly different branching structure because we've been trying to put the trellis trees in more of a two-dimensional shape, but it's been compounded just by our light intensity and making sure we're not getting that sunburn. So one of the things I'm going to be moving forward with exploring is using other plants to shade and protect the jackfruit when it's at a really early stage in life. What I'm hoping to do is introduce papaya really early on in an orchard. And by doing that, the papaya grows incredibly quickly and it might be able to provide shade. The papaya, in theory, should start producing fruit within 8 to 9 months. So in less than a year of establishing a crop, you may be able to have some cash coming back.
There are several varieties of jackfruit being evaluated in Western Australia for their suitability to the climatic conditions.
Here in Carnarvon, in the field, we're evaluating 6 different jackfruit varieties. We have the well-known Rajang variety in Carnarvon, and some of our local growers also have a variety called Galaxy. Those are growing quite well. Additionally, we have the 4 varieties in the nursery that have been brought over from Queensland. We have CP47, T62, C1, and C2. We found that the C1 and C2 seem to be the most successful in Carnarvon. We've had amazing establishment and growth on those. Once our night minimum temperatures drop below 12 degrees, we see the trees stop growing completely. Except for those 2 varieties, C1 and C2 actually continue to grow through winter season, and now that our temperatures have warmed up again in the spring, they're really taking off. Because of our remote location in Carnarvon, the easiest way for us to establish the trees was to grow everything from seed. Jackfruit's been grown by locals for multiple generations in Carnarvon. The only problem with that is that the trees were brought in so long ago, we don't know the history of them or the provenance. So one of the trials, our variety trial, is testing those seeds against each other. Now that we've identified 2 successful varieties, our next steps are going to be doing genetic testing to figure out where these have come from and what they are. With a little bit of luck, over the next season, we'll be getting those established in the field in between some papaya trees.
Water is a major input resource in all horticultural operations. Irrigation management practices have the potential to strongly influence both the quantity and quality of crop produced. Inappropriate or inefficient irrigation practices may also lead to crop stress, diseases and/or loss, as well as groundwater and surface water contamination, erosion or salinity problems. At the Carnarvon Research Station, the irrigation systems within the jackfruit trial blocks are currently being upgraded to a more suitable setup.
So we have an ample supply of water, but we weren't sure how to establish an irrigation setup that would be appropriate for jackfruit trees in Carnarvon. Originally, 2 pieces of drip line were put along the base of each tree. That worked, but we can do better. Our new irrigation system involves, again, 2 drip lines running through of 19 mil pipe, and those have emitters that are spaced all across the mounds. What that means is if we want to interplant with other crops, including papaya, we'll be able to do so. The most important part about changing our irrigation was actually adding in a sprinkler system. Our temperatures are really extreme, so the soil temperatures can go well above 60 degrees. In order to keep our temperatures within the orchards down, we're going to need to start using those sprinklers to irrigate a cover crop. All of our irrigation that we're using at the research station is coming from one of our bores, and that's at a depth of 21.5 meters. That water's pumped up out of the bore, filling a tank, and then used for all of the irrigation in the trials. What we're trying to do is dial in water use efficiency with our new irrigation system. While the temperatures are in the low 30s, we're running our drip lines for about 10 minutes 3 times a day, and we'll increase that to up to 6 times a day as the temperatures push into the 40s throughout the summer season. We have soil moisture sensors installed in all of our trials, so we can monitor exactly how much water is going into the soil at every time, and we have flow meters attached to our irrigation system, so we know exactly how much is going out there. And to dial in our water use efficiency, we're making sure we're constantly adjusting it using our irrigation controllers combined with our agricultural apps.
Over the life of the project, the Carnarvon Research Station has experienced several pest pressures in the jackfruit trees. Recently, the research team has discovered the presence of Phytophthora.
We were really disappointed to detect Phytophthora within this trial last year. Now, Phytophthora is an oomycete, and it behaves similarly to a fungus in the ground. The Phytophthora that we have here is traveling through the water and attacking our tree roots, which becomes incredibly problematic. We've had issues with sudden wilt, and the trees will rapidly die within less than a week of showing symptoms. We've been doing some experiments, doing various treatments to our soil, as well as adding different nutrients to the plants to really help them take off. We've been lucky in the fact that we've been able to start managing it over the last few months, and we haven't lost any trees since about June. We don't believe it can be eradicated within this block. It's now something we're going to have to learn to live with. However, our treatment has worked to this point, so we're going to continue on and see how we go. We have had other pathogens we've detected in this block. We think some of those have crossed over from the mangoes because we've picked up black spot and anthracnose. We also have alternaria. However, none of these have really posed a problem like the Phytophthora has because they can be easily managed through standard chemical applications. The silver lining to our pathogen issues with this block are that we now have learned different management techniques we can use to combat them, and this is information we can pass directly on to the growers.